Community College presents Bergen Bulldog Radio. Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Bergen Community College.
Welcome to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the YouTube Bergen Bulldog Radio channel and on Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. The Bergen Bulldog Podcast Show is a weekly compilation produced by the students of the podcasting class on the Pyramids campus of Bergen Community College. Each week, we will feature several podcasts created and produced by Bulldog Radio students. The topics vary, and we hope you will find them informative and entertaining. This week's program features the second episode from 5 podcasting students of the spring semester. So let's get on with the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the JPG Project. I am your host, Joshua Galton. Tonight, about a month and a half ago, the Indiana Hoosiers completed the greatest turnaround in probably sports history. Going into the 2025 season, Indiana was 101 in odds to win the national championship in football. Yes, football, according to all the sports books. Now, a school that is known for selling national championships, and particularly in basketball, has won its first football championship ever. Indiana is also a rare company by going 32-0 in 1975 in basketball under the late Bob Knight. Well, for 50 years later, perhaps the Bob Knight of Indiana football has finally arrived. Curt Cignetti, their head coach, has been everywhere, being coaching as a GA graduate assistant at Pitt in 1983 for 2 seasons. Spent 1985 at the Davidson's quarterback and wide receiver coach. Spends the next 3 seasons as the Rice quarterback coach. Then spent the next 4 years at the Temple's quarterback coach. Came back to Pitt for 7 years to be the quarterback coach and tight ends coach. Then the next 7 years, he was coaching the likes of Drew Phillips and Philip Rivers at North Carolina State as quarterbacks, tight end, and recruiting coordinator. The following 4 seasons, he was with Alabama under Nick Saban as the wide receivers coach and recruiting coordinator. And this is when he enters head coaching gigs. For 6 years after leaving Bama, Cignetti took over a Division III school that his father, Frank, coached back in the day at Indiana University, Pennsylvania. Took them to 2 conference championships in 6 seasons before going to an FCS college in Elon, where he would hire their head coach for the next 2 seasons, where he took Elon to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. In 2019, Cignetti would become the head coach of James Madison in 2019 and helped with the transition from FCS to the Sun Belt Conference and FBS. Took the Dukes to their first bowl game in his final season with them in 2023, and that's when we enter the last season, when Cignetti instilled hope to the Indiana team after signing with them starting in 2024. They would only lose to the 2 teams who would ultimately square off in last year's national championship game in Ohio State and Notre Dame, all with a quarterback playing on an injured leg in Curtis Rourke. And while they did get bumped in the first round last year, they reloaded. Got Fernando Mendoza from Cal, Roman Hemby from Maryland, and so many more. Mendoza won Indiana their first Heisman Memorial Award. Indiana won their first outright Big Ten title since 1945, all while snapping a losing streak against Ohio State. They won not 1, but 2 bowl games, Rose Bowl versus Alabama and Peach Bowl versus the rematch versus Oregon. Indiana would end the season not just as national champions, but also go 16-0, tying the 1894 Yale team for the most wins in a season. I can't believe we're comparing this to an Ivy League team that I am pretty sure is FCS. Mendoza went to win 2 games this season with no passing touchdowns, only 2. Ironically, the first and last games of the season. Both Old Dominion and Miami forced him to rush in those games, and one in the Natty was called out temporarily due to Charlie Becker being down at the goal line, leading to a Riley Nowakowski rushing touchdown. Now, I know why some of you are listening right now. You tune in to find out who the special guest I have on. I'm hyping up today. Well, joining us from Bloomington, Indiana, is an individual who is just as much of a Hoosier as I am. I know her. I love her. My sister. Please welcome the one, the only, Rose Gallatin, who will join us in a matter of seconds. Welcome, Rose.
Hi.
It's been a minute, so
I know.
how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a minute. So you and I were at the UCLA game week 9 this past fall. Did you?
Yes.
And I think Dad had some inkling of this was possible. But did you think on that day, one, this team would clamp down Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, give BTA to Alabama, Oregon, and 3, ultimately be standing 16-0 on January 19th as national champs in football?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think so. There was like partially an inkling that like they might have had a chance. Didn't think they'd beat Ohio State. I'm gonna be completely honest about that. And the rest of the CFP, how it played out, I was a little surprised. But as the games got more in the season, my hope ever so slightly increased. But once the Natties came, I was pretty sure that it was gonna be IU.
What does this mean, not just Indiana, but to you as well?
It just makes me very happy with the school that I picked. Obviously, like I'm an out-of-state student coming to IU, and being able to say that I go to the number 1 school in the nation is really cool for me. And especially now that I have one more year on this campus, it's very exciting, and I'm excited for my last football season, which is crazy to say.
I'll get to that in a second, but do you think that the media is overhyping comparing this past Hoosiers team to the 1894 Yale team?
I don't know. I mean, I think obviously like the timing was very different versus now. I wouldn't say it's right to compare them because again, they are different teams, even though their track record was similar. I don't think it's right to compare them because again, it was very different times. I understand why it's being done, but I think you have to give credit to the fact that this team is a very different team that IU has seen in a while, and I think that's a lot because of Coach Signetti, who wasn't the coach in 1894.
Okay, so the 2016 is favorable again. Out-of-conference games are pretty bangers. And the only draft games I think that you might be watching out for are Ohio State, Michigan, and USC. Fair?
Yeah, I would say so. I think we have more of a chance against Michigan than in previous years, but I would say you're pretty correct on that.
I understand you don't study the players that much, but have you gotten any time to learn about TCU quarterback Joshua Villa? And if you have, do you think going into next season he's capable of taking the current roster minus those who are leaving Bloomington back to the CFP next year in Vegas?
I haven't done much research on him, so I don't know much about him, but from what I have heard, I'm hopeful that he will do good things for this team, but I am wanting to look into him a little bit more.
One final question, and then I'm going to get out of the way, let you leave. What are your thoughts on Indiana sending a 9 record players to the NFL scouting combine last week? I personally think there could have been more with Mikal Kamara and someone else who wasn't invited popped out of my head. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think it just says a lot about what Coach Signetti has done for this team and the type of players that he's projecting out. He is shaping these players into becoming more than just the IU football team. They're shaping them into making this their career. And I think that one says a lot about him, but also says a lot about the grit of the players that attended this school. So it's definitely very exciting.
Well, Rose, thanks again for doing this. This is insightful for me, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yes, thanks, Josh.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, give it up for my sister, Rose Gallatin. To give you some context on something I'm going to mention in a little bit, me, my sister, and a few others in my family will be going to Rutgers week 5 when Indiana comes to town. So I will be now. I will be giving you my thoughts on the upcoming schedule. So, North Texas is who they opened up against. New coach, new quarterback. Former head coach Eric Morris and his starting quarterback Drew Messmaker, who led the country last year in passing yards, both leave to go to Oklahoma State for 2026, meaning that the Mean Green, who made to their conference championship before being bumped by Tulane last year, will be figuring out the quarterback situation in this offseason between freshman signing DeAndre Williams and redshirt senior Reese Poffenbarger. Before North Texas got overhauled, this is one of the out of conference games I was most worried about, so much that I was not going to talk about Howard. I'm not going to talk about Howard in Western Kentucky. Let's examine the Big Ten play. Opening versus Northwestern. It sounds like Aiden Childs will be starting for the Wildcats after leaving Michigan State. Could be a little more competitive on their end than the 2024 match when Curtis Work was their Indiana starter. I still think because this time Indiana is the home team, they get the advantage. Week 5 at Rutgers, first road game of the Hoosiers season. Similar path to the 2025 season, open 4 games before first road game week 5. As I mentioned before, I'll be there. The Scarlet Knights are in the quarterback competition of their own due to Ethan Kelly Magnus running out of eligibility. The candidates to replace him are transfer Dylan Lowergen and redshirt AJ Ceres, who has been in grooming in arriving in 2024. It is believed that head coach Greg Schiano will name a starter until training camp. Based on past trends, because of uncertainty around the position and also Rutgers' ability to win in conference play, I have Indiana starting 5-0. Week 6 has a road game against Nebraska. Matt Rule doesn't have Dylan Raiola anymore, so it's after he transferred to Oregon. But the expectation is that the UNLV trade senior transfer Anthony Colorandia will start in 2026. I'll give week 6 win 6 Indiana. Now we enter what is coined a murderous road gauntlet. Week 7, Ohio State comes into town. Big Ten championship rematch. Won't be shocked if it's on Big Noon Saturday. I don't feel comfortable making a pick in this one right now because Hoover's going to be tested. And while Northwestern, Rutgers, and Nebraska are all Big Ten teams, they're not currently in the same league as Ohio State. But I also think that Julian Sain will be tested like last December. Him, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Day, and the Buckeyes defense are going to looking to do something that hasn't been done to Carson Cincinnati in quite some time. Beat his squad on their home turf. Next week, they go to Michigan, who I think could be much more improved under Kyle Whittingham. Rose doesn't want to give him credit. Bryce Underwood should thrive in his system, so I will be holding off picking this one as well. Halloween date with Minnesota. Drake Lindsey comes back for his redshirt sophomore year. I will say that will be an easy one. Indiana has survived between that and hosting Jaden Mayava and USC. The Trojans are losing few receivers to the NFL, but I would think they'll keep it close with who they bring in. Washington is a wild card. I don't know how the Demon Williams debacle is going to impact his performance in 2026. From signing and then trying to jump shift into the transfer portal and then ultimately staying. But the Huskies went 9-3 last year. They could have been on the bubble for the playoffs if it weren't for a few games. They could be a contender this year. And finally, rivalry week hosting Purdue. At home, to close out the season. Should be another game like the past 2 years if we've seen anything from this rivalry, especially since Ryan Brown is returning for the Boilermakers. In any event, this regular season ceiling for Indiana, in my mind, is 12-0, and the floor is in the worst case scenario is 8-4. Realistically, I can't see them going worse than 9-3. Well, that's all the time we have for today. A quick reminder, next time we'll be going into a deep dive into the missing cases of today's show host, Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie. So stay tuned for that. Until next time, have a great night, everyone. I'm Joshua Gallatin, signing off.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show, here on the Bergen Bulldog Radio YouTube channel and on Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. And now, back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Nick's Pit Stop, where I am reviewing the current season of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 18. Before I say anything, I just want to say I am not a drag queen, So don't take any of my opinions to heart, but they are the correct opinions. So let's get into it. So the first, I'm going to be covering episode 11 in this episode, which I know is a little confusing because I did episode 8 last episode, but because of the way that the class works, I am having to skip a few episodes. If I have some time at the end, I'll go back and talk about the episodes I'm skipping. But today, I'll be covering the roast, or I guess the toast of Alyssa Edwards. Pre-challenge stuff. So I just want to mention that Jane so far has not been in the top. She's absolutely destroying this competition. I'm to the point where it's a little worrying to me. Like the fact that she hasn't not been in the top is scary because she either has to go to the end or they're going to shock eliminate her, and I'm really worried they're going to shock eliminate her. But I don't know. I can't see that happening and there not being like a riot. Anyway, now we're in the top 7 of the competition. Last episode, Discord ended up being in the bottom. Actually, let me quickly go over the track record of the last 2 episodes. So episode 9 was the Rusical. They did Annie the Rusical, where Athena Dion went home. Finally, Athena's gone. And Jane ended up winning. And then the episode after that was an amazing episode. I'm gonna try and talk about it at the end, but there were nobody went home. We did a top 2 with Jane and Kenya, and Jane won that. Again, Jane has not been in the top. Anyway, we're at top 7 now. This episode did have a mini challenge. They did it was like a Scentbird sponsored mini challenge where they made like these TikTok shop ads. It was weird. I didn't love it. I thought it was kind of funny the way they put like the RuPaul clips, but some of them were kind of cringe. And none of the ads really like stood out. It was like a very short little moment just so we can decide who can pick the roast order. Mikey ended up winning, so she gets to pick the roast order. And yeah, nothing very notable of that mini challenge. I didn't love it. I thought it was like whatever. It's like a time filler because with the roast episodes, they don't have much to put in like before the challenge. So getting to the main challenge and the runway. Before I start, I'm just gonna preface the way that I do this. I go through every girl, how they did in the challenge, and how I like their runway. So again, like I said, the main challenge of this episode is the roast of Alyssa Edwards, and the runway is swept away, and they have like a big fan on the runway at the end. So the girls get like they have to play with the fan essentially. So first up, I have Discord Adams. She was first. I'm gonna try and keep in the order of the roast, but I end up messing one of them up later. So Discord was first. I didn't think she was bad to start, but I do think she slowly went downhill as it went on. Some of her jokes were pretty funny, but her delivery was just bad. And honestly, this is what I was expecting from Discord. Her not being like a comedy queen. She's like emo, like punk outfit girl. And I think that really showed last episode with her clothespin gate, whatever. I'll try and get to that. But anyway, I did not love her in the challenge, and I think it got worse as it went on. And her runway, I thought was a really cool concept. She was supposed to be on like a motorcycle. I thought it was cute the way she like drove around the stage, but I didn't really like it from the side. I thought it looked very top heavy from the side, and she's like awkwardly holding these handlebars. I didn't love it, but I thought it was cool. Not horrible. So Jane Don't, we have to get to Jane Don't, who obviously is going to slay the roast. Like it's Jane. Like this is her thing. She's funny. We knew she was going to slay the roast, and she did good. I don't think she did amazing. One of the notable jokes I wrote down was that she called the other judges, she called them RuPaul's elderly care aides. I thought that was really funny. A lot of her jokes are a little too inappropriate for me to say, which is going to be a running theme for this episode. Because I have some things I'm not allowed to say, but a lot of inappropriate funny jokes. And for her runway, this is the first Jane runway I don't love. It feels a little bulky for me. I do like the fascinator on her head, the little moon thing. I think it's cool. I like the contrast with the ginger wig, but not my favorite. Next up, I have Darlene Mitchell. Darlene really shined this episode. I was worried because she's funny, but again, she doesn't perform. That's like her thing. She's a bedroom queen. She doesn't really perform. So I was worried for her going up there. How is her presence going to be? How is she going to be able to get with the audience? But she ended up being so funny. So she started her sets by saying that she's like, oh, everyone likes to call me a prop queen. And she really played into that. So her first joke doesn't land and they do a confessional. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And that was such a great decision. I'm so happy that she did that because she really went balls to the wall. I hope I could say that. Like it was really crazy. And it was so funny. Like, she would say a joke, it wouldn't land. She would have this bag. She would pull out like a banana. She'd be like, banana, and everyone would die. I really, really like Discord. Like, at first, I was a little worried that that was going to be cringe and get old, but it really didn't. And I really think this was an amazing week for Discord. And her runway was cute too. She had a very cute runway. She really played into the character of it. I really like the colors. I like her umbrella. I loved that when the fan turned on, she was like acting like she was getting blown away. Very cute. Amazing week for Darlene. I'm so happy. We will get to that later. Next up, Nini Coco. Sadly, as much as I hate to say it, Nini did not do amazing this episode. Like, she wasn't bad. She had this storyline going on that everyone thinks that she's mean and she's too rude and she's going to be mean to everyone and that her jokes aren't going to land. But I don't think she was mean. I just think she wasn't amazing. And I hate to say that because Nini's like one of my favorites in this challenge, but I don't know. Not amazing for her. Her runway, on the other hand, I loved. So she came out in this all black, like, sad runway. She's holding this urn, and once they turn the fan on, she pulls her hand like into the urn and throws out these sparkles. I thought that was so creative. And it's a really cool way to do the fan runway. It's very conceptual. Um I liked it a lot. And I think that really pulled her like out of the bottom this episode because her roast was really not it. Speaking of people whose roasts were not it, Kenya Pleaser. So Kenya Pleaser was just really bad. She had a lot of energy and like she was very bubbly and loud, like she usually is, but the jokes just weren't it and they were not hitting. And I wrote in my notes yeesh in all caps because it was just making me cringe the whole time. And there was one specific joke that I can't reference because it's inappropriate, but she said it to RuPaul and they cut to RuPaul and RuPaul is just staring at her smiling. Oh my gosh, that hurt me to watch. That literally hurt. Kenya did not do good this episode. And then on her runway, I really didn't like it either. She's wearing this nice purple dress. It's not horrible. But then she has this like cheap plastic attached to the back of it just to fit the category. I really did not like it. I have nothing really good to say about Kenya this week. And I think not only was her performance bad, but her runway was really bad too. I don't know. This was not Kenya's week. Next up, I have Juicy Love Dion, who actually went earlier in the challenge, but I completely forgot. And I think that really shows how she did in the roast. If I literally completely forgot that she was even there. She was right after Jane, which already like Mikey. I feel like Mikey kind of set her up there because you're putting Juicy, who you know isn't going to be funny, right after Jane, who everyone is. When the challenge starts, I'm thinking, okay, Mikey or Jane's going to win, obviously. So putting Juicy right after her was crazy. All of her jokes were like long and like convoluted and weird, and her delivery was just really bad, which is honestly what I was expecting from Juicy. Sadly, I don't know. There was no way that she was going to do good in this challenge, and if she did, she probably would have won the season because it was just not it. And her runway, I thought her runway wasn't horrible, but the theme is like the wind, and she's literally just holding like a fitted bedsheet. I think she was saying that she was like parachuting or something, but she was literally just holding like a fitted sheet behind her and it was catching the fan and like, okay, like that's not it. I don't hate how she looks, but again, that fitted sheet really threw me. Like, are we serious? And then Mikey is last up in the roast. She wanted to close the show. Oh, I forgot to mention, Alyssa roasted Juicy during her set, which is already just like a kill shot. Like, you're done. Like, we're roasting, whatever. Sorry, Mikey Meeks. Mikey was great. Her joke that she said that Alyssa is the reason that Texas is last in education killed me. That was so funny. And she had this bit where she would like say a joke and then do like a little merp face. I thought that was really funny. I thought it was going to get old. It did not get old. I thought Mikey was great. I definitely think she was the second best because Darlene just did so good this week. And her runway was really cute. I like the makeup. I like the hair. And it's not super creative, but it's good. It's not bad. Like, I like the colors a lot. She doesn't fall into the Juicy craze of having a bedsheet behind her. But anyway, let's get to the judges' critiques. So Nini and Discord end up being safe, which I think is good because they both weren't great. And they definitely both deserve to be safe, especially after Nini's runway. And I thought Discord's runway was pretty good too. So having them both be safe, I think was a good decision. For our top 3, we have Jane, Mikey, and Darlene, which I thought was obvious. Even before the episode started, we knew they were going to be in the top. And with Darlene ended up taking the win, I thought that was so deserved. I was so happy Darlene ended up winning. She really needed a win, honestly. I'm going to get to my top 4 soon, who I think is going to be the top 4 of the season. And this episode really kind of pushed Darlene in that direction for me because I feel like she was kind of falling back and she was kind of giving filler queen in the beginning of the season, but she's really pulling herself up. And I thought this episode really showed that. And then in our bottom 2, we have Juicy and Kenya, which I definitely agree with. And I couldn't really see this episode going any other way, especially after everyone's saying Kenya needs to go home. Everyone's been talking recently. Kenya needs to go home. She's not been doing great, even though she did do good in the last episode. So for the lip sync, Kenya and Juicy lip synced to Total Eclipse of the Heart. And once I saw that, I was worried for Juicy because I did not think Juicy would be able to sell the emotion of Total Eclipse of the Heart, but she did. I think I underestimate Juicy still, even at this point in the competition. I keep underestimating her. I do want to point out that this is their 3rd time lip syncing for both of them, which already kind of hurts it's kind of like embarrassing in a way. Like our 3rd time lip syncing, and Kenya, everyone has been saying, I said before, everyone's been saying Kenya needs to go home. When is Kenya going to go home? When is RuPaul going to send Kenya home? And this was her episode, I think, to go home. Juicy obviously ended up chopping Kenya off to make it into the top 6. I do want to point out also, they used the fan during the lip sync. I thought it was really cool. At the chorus of the song, they like blew the fan and it was really dramatic. And I liked that. But yeah, Juicy ended up knocking out Kenya for her spot in the top 6, which I thought was a long time coming. Kenya hasn't been doing great in the competition. Juicy, I think, is just like another level up. And the only real critique they keep giving Juicy is like she has no personality, which I also think is such a stupid critique because I hate when they're like, oh, who are you? Who are you? Show us who you are. Like, what do you mean? Anyway, I thought this episode was really good. I thought it was really funny. None of them were horribly hard to watch bad. Like, a lot of the times with the roast, for example, like Utica from season 13, that was hard to watch. And I thought this one wasn't horrible. No one was really, really painfully bad, except Kenya maybe, but it wasn't horrible. So I do have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to go over some of the stuff from the 2 episodes that I skipped. Episode 9 was the Rusical, where they parried Annie. I thought Kenya did a great job. What annoyed me, though, is they gave Kenya and Juicy essentially the same role. Like, they were playing, like, these sisters. They're, like, ballroom club dancers. And I feel like they kind of only had that role so that one person can do better. And the critique that they give Juicy is that Kenya was better than you. So, like, I'm like, why do those roles exist then? One of them is going to stand out. They're not going to be exactly the same. So I feel like that role was, like, made just to give that critique. Mikey did amazing in the Rusical, and Jane snatched the win from her. I thought Jane did great. Her song, I think it's I'm not as think as you drunk I am, was so funny. I haven't seen Annie. I thought the Rusical was great. Episode after that was a design challenge where the queens had to design outfits from materials that were left by the queens that were eliminated. So during the episode, they explained that the queens kind of realized this is what was going to happen. So when they were asked to pack fabric, some of the queens assumed that they were going to be giving the fabric to someone else. So people were like, oh, maybe they chose bad fabric on purpose. And Jane gets given like the worst fabric from Sierra Mist's box. And this episode, I think they were going for their Emmy because in the design challenge episodes, there isn't a lot of time for them to like really do anything because they're just like designing outfits. So this episode had a lot of talking, and I just it was really nice to listen to the queens and hear them talk and hear them joke around in the workroom. And Jane had an amazing redemption arc this episode. I was literally shaking, worried that she was going to go home. And I also want to highlight the editing of that episode. It was amazing. That's why I said I think they're going for their Emmy. If you're going to watch an episode from season 18, I definitely recommend watching that episode. It was great. I honestly want to go rewatch it already. Jane ended up taking the win in that episode as well. So Jane is up to like 3 wins at this point, I think. She's never not been in the bottom, and she is my front runner. I'm very excited to see the top 4, which is going to be in 2 weeks. So I will be covering that episode, and I'll probably be covering the finale as well. But it looks like that's all the time I have for today. So thank you for tuning in to Nick's Pit Stop.
Still lots more to come here on the podcast show on Bergen Bulldog Radio. This is Bergen Bulldog Radio from Bergen Community College on YouTube and Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Gift for Gab, a podcast all about comic book canon and media that I think is worth talking about. It's Nate Enriquez on the mic. Happy to be talking with you guys. Now, for this episode, I wanted to take a step away from the usual format I've been kind of coming up with of talking about a specific character every episode, because something major has happened. I'm talking about the trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day that dropped yesterday. This trailer was absolutely huge, and there's a lot to cover, so we're going to go into detail today on this episode. This trailer, which last I checked had just shy of 11 million views, so it probably has over 11 million views by the time you're listening to this. Since it's released yesterday, by the way, which will only be 2 days after this airs, it showed us a good chunk of what we can expect from the upcoming movie. It's not that far away, scheduled to release on July 31st, so we have to buckle in and get to dissecting this absolutely spectacular trailer. First off, this trailer has a couple of great Easter eggs and a lot of fan service that I think a lot of Spider-Man fans will have caught already. But if you're not sure what I'm talking about, we can go into it right now. You have a lot of slow-mo shots that kind of parallel comic covers, first off. If you notice the still of him swinging and holding someone under his arm, it's like a perfect like one-to-one parallel to his first ever comic appearance, which is Amazing Fantasy number 15. That iconic pose came all the way back in the comic was published in August 1st, 1962. So that's a long time ago. That made me smile, actually, seeing that. I was really happy seeing that. I was like, no way are they doing stuff like this. Like they know their audience. I'll tell you that much. Another great one is the slow-mo shot of him fighting who I think is Tarantula. It's that shot that mirrors the iconic cover of Tarantula's first appearance all the way back in Amazing Spider-Man 134. And that was all the way back on April 9th, 1974. And I personally think it's really cool to see a lot of these classic Spidey villains hit the big screen, especially a guy like Tarantula, who a lot of people don't really talk about. And speaking of villains, we got an absolutely insane cast for this movie. Just to name a few, we got Mark Ruffalo. He's reprising his role as Dr. Bruce Banner. John Bernthal is coming back as the Punisher. Michael Mando as Scorpion. I mean, we got some great characters showing up in this movie with some great actors. And, not to mention Sadie Sink being on the cast as well. I don't really know what her character is going to be, but you know what? I'm very interested to see what it is going to be. I don't really know what all these characters are going to serve as plot points for this movie, but I'm very excited to see. And we do have a lot of plot points to talk about too. I mean, I'm not an absolute expert on the current timeline of the MCU, but I can assume that most of you listeners have seen Spider-Man No Way Home. And if not, fair warning, some spoilers will be ahead as I kind of talk about the plot and what I think is going to happen. So as everybody that watched No Way Home will know, what happened basically at the end of the movie is that everyone forgot about Peter Parker after Doctor Strange casted that spell that made everybody forget about him. And that helped resolve the problem of his identity as Spider-Man being revealed to the public. But it opens up a whole new can of worms, obviously, because he lost everybody. He's completely alone. So in this movie, he's really navigating things on his own, and he's trying to reconnect with his girlfriend and his best friend, MJ and Ned. And you know what? The Spider-Man side of Peter's life is in a roller coaster too. I mean, one of the first shots you see of him is him accepting the key to the city, and then two seconds later, he's looking at the key like it doesn't really mean anything to him because it's just basically an empty award. It doesn't mean anything. And not only that, but his powers seem to be spiraling out of control because he's talking about his DNA mutating. That's a whole thing. And that brings me to Spider-Man's comics, where I think this movie is going to be taking a lot of material from. I think this movie is going to be aligned with the comics more than any other Spider-Man movie in the MCU ever has. I saw a lot of parallels to the comics, actually, in that trailer. what stuck out to me the most was the scene where Peter collapses, and then it cuts to him emerging from that web cocoon, and he kind of falls, and he doesn't have his web shooters, but he gets to like basically hang off of what I assume is going to be organic webbing. And that actually happens in the comics where he goes into the cocoon and he emerges after a while. But I don't think they're going to go that exact route it went in the storyline. I think they're gonna maybe open a plot line for Man Spider, because there's another scene in the trailer where Peter's eyes go black, and Bruce Banner is talking about how dangerous his DNA mutating is. I think that's where they're gonna go with it. I'm not 100% certain, but I think maybe they're doing that, because I have no other explanation as to why his eyes would turn black. But besides that, there's a lot going on in the trailer. I mean, we see Punisher, and him and Peter have this fight, and it's funny, but it's also just great to see John Bernthal back as Punisher, especially in a Spider-Man movie. Seeing those two interact is crazy, because they have a lot of history in the comics. Punisher almost kills Spider-Man, but I don't think they're gonna do that. And then we have this weird scene later in the trailer where Spider-Man is basically stopping a tank, and when he opens the tank, it's just an old lady inside. And from what I gathered from the context clues about the scene, I don't think she's in control of her own body, because the camera work in that scene kind of shifts attention a lot. It goes from this old lady piloting the tank, and her head kind of jerks, and then the camera jerks with it, and then it goes to a soldier, and then his head jerks up, and the camera jerks up, and then it goes to somebody else. I think somebody's character is going to have some form of mind control. Maybe Sadie Sink's character. I don't know what she's going to do, but I think maybe it has something to do with that, because obviously these people are not acting correctly, because why would an old woman be piloting a tank if we think about it? But yeah, I think maybe there's going to be a mind control aspect, and I think that might be the overarching villain of this movie. But besides that, Bruce Banner's in this movie, and Hulk is my favorite comic book character, along with like Plastic Man and Juggernaut. So seeing him in the movie is awesome. I don't know what his purpose is going to be. I think maybe they're going to do a nod to the comics, because a similar event happened with Peter where everybody forgot about his secret identity. But when he interacted with Hulk, Hulk remembered who he was. And I think they're going to do that in the movie, and it'll be really cool to see that. I hope they do that, because it would be very cool, like that whole scene, like, Banner forgot, Hulk doesn't forget though. That'd be cool. And then I don't know. Like there's so many characters in here, and also Michael Mando Scorpion. That's amazing, because the last time we saw him was in the post-credit scene of Homecoming. So now, however many years later, I don't remember exactly when Homecoming came out, but however many years later, we're finally getting him actually playing Scorpion on the big screen. It's going to be really cool to see that. I mean, I love Michael Mando. He's a fantastic actor, and I think Scorpion is just right up his alley in terms of a character that I think he'd do a great job playing. And some more minor things. When Spider-Man receives the key to the city, I think maybe New York has a new mayor. Kingpin is absent. He's not around. So the woman that's handing him the key is, I think, maybe the new mayor of New York. That could be interesting. I think maybe that might be a plot point, considering, there's tanks all over the place, like Punisher's here, and like there are a bunch of explosions happening in the city and this huge fight scene. I don't know. Like, the trailer shows a lot, but it doesn't at the same time. Like, I don't know where this story is gonna go, but I think that just makes it more exciting, because I'm very happy to see where they take this, and I think this is really going to be like kind of a reset for the Spider-Man movies, because these Spider-Man movies have gotten more and more over the top as they've gone. Homecoming was, I think pretty grounded, and then Far From Home kind of escalates a little bit. Stakes are like way higher, and then No Way Home is obviously this huge cosmic movie with, the multiverse and all that. And, I think this is going to be a bit more grounded of a movie. I mean, obviously there's still, crazy scenes, explosions and everything happening, but I don't think it's going to go on that crazy cosmic scale. At least from what I've seen from the trailer, I don't think it's going to do that. If it does, then we'll see, but I doubt it. Especially with a lot of these street level guys, Punisher is street level, Scorpion is street level, Tarantula is definitely street level. So I don't know. And then you have this scene with these assassins wearing red. I'm wondering if that's maybe like the Hand or something. The Hand is like a villainous group in Marvel, if you guys are not aware. But if you guys been watching Daredevil, you know who the Hand is. If not, yeah, the Hand is a secret like villainous organization in Marvel, and they wear red. Red is like one of their signature colors. So I'm thinking maybe the Hand is going to be a part of this movie too. I mean, a lot of it seems to be maybe tying in slightly with Daredevil Born Again, which I'm not caught up with Daredevil, so I can't really talk as much as I would want to about it. But yeah, Daredevil Born Again, I think is going to tie into this movie, or vice versa. Spider-Man's going to tie into Daredevil Born Again. So you have all these characters and all these organizations apparently with the Hand, and then all these street level guys. Yeah, I really don't want them to keep going this cosmic route for these Spider-Man movies, because I don't think that's where Spider-Man shines. I mean, I love No Way Home. I love Far From Home. I like those movies, but it gets to a point where everything kind of gets like it's kind of chaotic. Because if you try and top No Way Home, I think you're just gonna like mess up the movie. Like I think you're gonna mess it up. I think it's gonna be too grandiose. Like it's not something I think Marvel should do, and I don't think they are going to do that, which I commend them for, because I think it would be a bad direction to go. But I think this parallels comic Peter a lot, because Peter, quite frankly, in this trailer is very depressed. He's by himself. He doesn't have anybody. And Marvel Comics, they love to send Peter through the ringer. Peter Parker is never happy for long in the comics, and I think they're doing that finally with Peter here. I mean, they did it in Far From Home. Peter went through a lot in Far From Home, and No Way Home the same. And I think it's just gonna get worse. So yeah, there's a lot going on in that trailer, and I really liked it. I think it's peak. I think it's fantastic, and I think this movie is going to be an absolute banger. But as far as that goes, that's pretty much all I have to talk about with this trailer. But let me say, for Peter Parker and his transformation in the MCU, I really like the direction they went with him. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Tom Holland's rendition of Peter Parker, but I really like it. And I think that this movie is going to be what changes a lot of people's minds about Tom Holland, because, they love Tobey Maguire, and I think Andrew Garfield's kind of the black sheep of the three main live action Spider-Man. I love Andrew Garfield personally. I think he did a great job. But the way I see it is that Tobey Maguire was a really good Peter Parker versus a Spider-Man, and then Andrew Garfield was a really good Spider-Man versus a Peter Parker. I think Tom Holland is kind of that really nice blend of both. I think he does both really well. Not to say that he does it better or worse than any of these guys, but yeah, I think that all of them have their own things, and I think all the Tom Holland haters, for lack of a better term, are going to find that this movie may change their minds. And you know what? I'm going to leave it at that, because I think you should see it for yourself, and I think you should rewatch the trailer a couple times to see if you can pick up on the things that I've been talking about. But that's all from me. This has been the second episode of Gift for Gab. Again, I'm Nate Henriquez, and thank you guys all for listening. Have a good night.
You're listening to Bergen Bulldog Radio, the podcast show here on YouTube and FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey. And now back to the show.
I'm Aiden Moreno, and you're listening to Openly Mindful, the only show with no experts, no agenda, just good old-fashioned one-on-one discussions. Join me as I interview guests and try to understand their perspectives just a little bit better. So this is the second episode. I'm excited. I have my good friend, my new friend, from podcasting class.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I am. My name is Justin Gonzalez. Yep, I'm here with Aiden. We take the same podcasting class here at BCC.
Yes, sir. And today we're going to be talking about Christianity, religion as a whole, really, but focusing on Christianity.
Yeah.
Can you please tell me about your personal journey into Christianity?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up going to church. And during that time, I was a little kid. So everything kind of went in one ear and out the other.
Sure.
But I did know that growing up, I believed that there was a God and that God was the God of the Bible. But I never really understood that until I was about 19 years old when my dad got me a Bible for Christmas. And
really?
Yeah, so all that time I kind of just did my own thing, whatever I wanted. And then it was about until I was 19 where I started reading the Bible for myself, and that what I saw as the truth of the scriptures kind of open up my eyes to what it was saying. And so I started to believe from there. But interestingly enough, if I may share, is that I'm at this point now to where, as a discussion that we had before, where I'm kind of moving out of this kind of mainstream Christianity into a more historical Christian perspective, going from Protestantism into Orthodoxy.
Yeah, and we have had previous discussions, very briefly about Christianity, because you're a booming man. You always have a positive smile.
I appreciate it.
A great attitude. I'm a little jealous sometimes. Like,
oh
how
man,
do you achieve this?
Come to church, bro. Let's go. I'll pray for you right now.
All right. No, I'll take you that offer. I mean, I guess I should introduce a little my background.
Yeah,
I was
please.
raised Catholic. I was raised Catholic for a while. I'm at this point in my life where I'm agnostic. I've been openly agnostic for a while,
Yeah.
And for viewers listening who don't know what agnostic means, it's kind of like the halfway in between a religious person and atheistic person. It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a God? Is there not a God? I like this community bit. There's a shonen community, and it's like they say agnostic is the lazy man's atheist. It's kind of true,
Most agnostics I hear say, I believe in a higher power. I think that's how most of them would describe it.
That's how I would describe it, yes. I just don't know who that higher power would be.
When I have conversations with people who say that they are agnostic, one of the first things I would ask is, because again, I am a Christian, I would ask, what is it about the God of the Christians that they either appreciate or that keeps them kind of a little reserved? Like, what is it that makes them not take those steps? Sometimes it's they just don't do enough research. Sometimes it's, oh no, I had bad experiences. And it could be a plethora of things, but I think that's a great way to touch base.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think it was being introduced so early as a child and not being explained enough.
Yeah.
My family is religious, I think, out of tradition for the most part. My mother is kind of the same way as me, that sometimes she goes to God at times of trouble, and then she'll fall out of God, with going to church and, But my grandma is very religious, very Catholic, very Catholic woman, and she tries to reinvoke that interest of Jesus every now and then. She's like, you should go to church more, and I'm like, yeah. And then I never end up doing, But I guess, what do you think? What makes Christianity feel true to you as opposed to other religions?
So, again, interestingly enough, I'm kind of in this middle phase myself between a more widely recognized Christianity, especially in the West, in America, Protestantism and evangelical denominations such as Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist, etc., and things of the like, where I'm in this middle stage where I am looking into historical Christianity and doing some research on the history of the church, where the church came from, how it started, what they believed, what they're teaching. The podcast assignment that I'm doing for this class is actually talking about one of the theological differences between the first church and some of the later interpretations of the faith. So ultimately, I would say, as so far as I've learned in my own little journey here, what makes Christianity feel true to me, or what makes it true to me, is that there's these people who lived this life believing and following Jesus were real people. They were that the Bible, not only is it accurate for me and billions of others, not only is it seen as a historically accurate book, but it's a story about the lives of real people who experienced the real things and who lived that life even unto the point of persecution and death, right? I had a short conversation with a friend of mine where he told me the winners write history, right?
Yeah.
Winners write
Hear
history.
that expression a lot. Yes.
The first thing I told him, because I was talking about the reliability of the Bible, he said the winners write history, and I said, how did the Christians win when they were being thrown into the Colosseum and mauled by animals?
Right.
So I think the amount of devotion, and it's not the only thing, but the amount of devotion and the real life stories that we hear from people who followed propel me to that interest in, okay, who is this Jesus and what is he teaching? And so I would say that's one of the things that makes me feel, wow, this is a real thing here.
Yeah. I'm just curious as well. I mean, have you explored other religions in time? Like, I know there's many denominations, as you mentioned, of Christianity, but they all follow the same premise, basically.
Yeah.
Jesus died for our sins, and he will come back one day.
Yeah.
But have you explored into Judaism, Buddhism, those other, etc.?
Absolutely. It's funny because when I first started believing in Jesus and following Jesus, one thing I wanted to make sure was that my faith wasn't, my parents' faith.
Yeah.
And that's something that, again, unfortunately happens a lot, is that somebody's personal faith is not really that personal.
Right.
And so what I would do is I would look up kind of street preaching videos, debate videos, look into something. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term apologetics. Do you know that term?
I'm not familiar.
It's just a fancy word for religious debate, organized religious debate.
Oh, okay. Sounds like less confrontational.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it is more organized, more professional. Obviously, debates get heated, but
Sure.
nonetheless, yeah, I wanted to make sure that this faith that I was basically banking my eternity on was solid. And again, everybody's experience is different, but what I've learned from actually challenging my faith more was that it remained just as solid every time. So, but yes, I've looked into Islam because Islam mentions Jesus. I've looked into Judaism because they're connected, basically.
Right, that Abrahamic three.
Directly connected. And so, yes, I have looked into those things, and the more I looked into them, the more my faith was strengthened in Christ, I would say.
Following that, do you think morality requires religion, or can it exist independently?
So it's interesting because that is again.
I know,
it is a fantastic question.
Not enough time for 15 minutes, but
yeah.
If you could give your brief.
If I had to put it in short, I do not think that morality / purpose could exist outside of a relationship with God. And I know that might ruffle feathers, and I say it with love. From a Christian perspective, I say it with love and humility. But I think that if there is no God, and we are actually just particles and dust and dirt, and we just are floating through space, and one day we're going to just turn back to dirt and it all goes black, there's no reason that I should be sitting here answering your questions, because why would I want to do that? There's no reason I should be going to school, because it's not going to matter anyways. I think that the fact that we have this innate desire to want to do good or have good things is a revelation that there is something more out there.
So you're basically saying that science does not answer the explanation of why a bunch of atoms, if we're just a bunch of atoms, why do we have innate desires to love and desire things and have a soul, basically? Like, science doesn't explain the soul. Is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of scientists or a lot of Christians or anybody
Yeah.
think that science and faith don't mix, but actually, when we look into Christian history, it were many Catholics, it were many Orthodox people, it were many amongst other groups in the world, but many Christian people who spearheaded some of the most amazing creations that we have in human history today, such as universities and etc. Hospitals as well, and etc.
And following that, like with scientists, or
Mhm.
let's just say all non-religious people, it's something you wish that they understood about Christianity.
Something I wish people understood about Christianity that don't know.
Non-religious people.
Yeah, non-religious people. I would say, I would just say I wish that they understood that. Man, that is fantastic.
That's
oh my
okay.
goodness.
That's a real thinker, huh?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Something I wish that they knew. Maybe
Someone
just
who was maybe just had doubts.
had doubts. Yeah.
Or maybe like a negative perception of Christians, because not all like people had good experiences with Christians. Maybe
Mhm.
there were mistreated by one. Maybe there were the bad experiences with the
Yeah.
church. Who knows? What would you say to them, or what would you say they wish they understood?
I would honestly apologize on behalf of the faith, because there are many so-called Christians that don't accurately represent the gospel, that don't accurately represent Christ, and it breaks my heart, honestly, for everybody who's grown up in the faith who has strayed away because of somebody's lack of Christ likeness. I if I could put it, I would apologize, and then I would just ask them, don't let this one bad experience define an entire thing for you. I mean, a cheesy analogy.
I love that response. I mean, I heard something too about others who cast judgment. I mean, isn't the ultimate goal of Christianity, or not the goal, but aspect of it, is that no one has the right to judge other humans don't have the right to judge other humans. That ultimately it's God.
So that is also a common misconception amongst believers.
Really?
But in a certain way, I can explain this to you.
Go ahead.
So the Bible talks about, and church tradition talks about, Christians judging other Christians.
Yeah.
So if we were biological brothers, right?
Mhm.
And I know you, and I see you doing something wrong, it's up to me as your brother who genuinely and sincerely loves you to say, hey, Aiden, that's wrong. You should stop that.
Yeah.
And it's me judging you. On the other hand, the scriptures also teach to show grace. Yes, grace seasoned with salt, but still show grace, present Christ to people who do not believe. And so, yes, I am able to judge other believers and even judge non-believers, but that judgment is not ours. Mine as Justin's judgment, but God's judgment, I'm sharing with you guys. So there's a more stricter judgment within the family than there is outside, in which, why would I judge somebody who doesn't know Christ as if they do? I would judge the believer sternly with love and grace, and I would present the gospel to the unbeliever before passing a judgment that I can't pass.
It's interesting. I love that response. And finally, I want to ask one last question.
Sure.
If someone, Christian, Catholic, all denominations, if someone was currently questioning their faith, what would you say to them?
I would say, as maybe as cliche as it sounds, I would say pray. I think prayer is the absolute strongest tool that a believer has. There's nothing that we can do apart from prayer, apart from seeking communion and unity with Christ and asking for his help and guidance. There's a Bible verse that says, where Jesus tells his disciples, without me you can do nothing. And so I think the best possible way to overcome things, or even suffer through things, because some things are not meant to be removed, some things are meant to be pushed through, is through prayer, through constant, fervent prayer.
I want to thank you so much, Justin,
I appreciate
for coming
it.
out on my podcast, and I want to thank you for helping me become more openly mindful.
Still lots more to come here on the podcast show on Bergen Bulldog Radio. This is Bergen Bulldog Radio from Bergen Community College on YouTube and Torch TV, FiOS Channel 26 in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Rain hisses against neon glass. A city hums, alive, electric, and just a little bit broken. Towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over crowded streets where humanity and machinery blur into something new, something unsettling. Corporate logos flicker overhead while figures in long coats move through the night, chasing memories, identities, or maybe running from them. It sounds familiar, right? Like I'm describing the Blade Runner franchise? But I'm not talking about a Blade Runner film, though we do have runners in this one, edge runners, because today I'm talking all things cyberpunk. Hello, and welcome to Narratives on the Move. I'm Lillian Venskis, and this podcast looks at how narratives expand across various media to create sprawling worlds. And today I have a special guest with me to talk about cyberpunk. Say hi, Max.
Hi, I'm Max.
He, full disclosure, he's my son, and he's the one who introduced me to the franchise of cyberpunk. So let me go back into a little bit of history of what this actually is, if you're not familiar with it. So cyberpunk starts as a tabletop role-playing game in the late 80s, and now it's this sprawling franchise that at one point had an ARG, an augmented reality game, where video gamers hacked into a real-life shipping container using things like a robot plasma cutter to win a contest. So this is a story that literally breaks into our reality. So the original tabletop RPG comes out in 1988, and it's created by a man named Mike Pondsmith. And it's intended to capture 80s sci-fi. Pondsmith has directly cited Blade Runner as a key source of inspiration for the aesthetic and the tone of the world. So if you look at the game, it tries to replicate the gritty tech noir of the film Blade Runner, which is defined by this neon-lit cityscapes, persistent rain, and the high-tech, low-life ethos. Right? Sound good?
Absolutely.
Yep. And then if you look at something like just like the setting of Night City, which is the setting of cyberpunk, it's a coastal metropolis, which was, of course, heavily reminiscent of the futuristic Los Angeles of the Blade Runner film. Now, of course, we're talking about the first Blade Runner because this is 1988. Another very interesting thing about cyberpunk is that when it moves through various, let's start with the tabletop games. With those tabletop games, and then it finally gets to the video game, there is a unified timeline, right? This is an official canonical timeline that Mike Pondsmith has established to ensure narrative continuity across these tabletop games, video games, and the anime. If you look at the actual storyline, narratively, the timeline diverges from our real-world history in the 1980s. In the world of cyberpunk, the U.S. becomes embroiled in a major Central American conflict, leading to economic collapse. Do you want to talk briefly about what it's supposed to be about?
Well, it mostly centers, I'd argue, on the day-to-day lives of the citizens of Night City. I mean,
but is it a critique?
Oh, for sure.
Of
a critique of corporate culture.
Corporate culture. That's what I thought.
American capitalism as a whole, definitely, especially the extortion of the common people by big businesses.
Right. Okay. All right. So when you look at the timeline, you're going to get three major expansions of the game, right? The first one is called
2013 era.
13,
yeah.
which is the time period that it's supposed to take place. Then we get a game, Cyberpunk 2020, and then we get Cyberpunk Red. Cyberpunk Red is a game that bridges the time to the video game, right?
Yes, and it is developed in conjunction with the video game,
right?
Specifically to serve that purpose.
Right, right. And then of course, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the anime, is the prequel to the video game, and they're all set in the same world.
Absolutely.
Except for the thing we do not discuss that much, which is Cyberpunk version 3.0. It's a tabletop game that had terrible reviews. So the creator just said, all right, it's a separate timeline, not canonical. But everything else is pretty unified.
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, kind of nice for a big franchise like this,
yeah,
right?
It's
And
pretty good.
and the future expansions are all going to be set in the same world.
Yes.
So we're going to have a video game sequel currently titled Cyberpunk 2 or Project Orion.
And big news, at least if what I just saw on social media is correct, apparently literally today,
Yeah.
as we're speaking,
Yeah.
a prequel is set in summer of 2026
A prequel
to the video game.
A prequel video game?
Is set in summer of, so like
Oh.
big news. Apparent once again, this is unconfirmed corner.
Unconfirmed corner.
A
right,
bit
yeah.
early, but
That's fine. All right. So this is going to be a third video game?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then there's going to be a second season of the anime called
Mm-hmm.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2, which is supposed to be a standalone story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So currently it's still a pretty active franchise, right?
Absolutely.
Because we have all of these tabletop games. Oh, and did you know there's a single player mode for the tabletop game Red?
I did not.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out for So it came out for, what did they call it? There was a funny name. Lonely Chumbas to play by themselves. That's what the game company called them.
Yeah.
But I think that's nice for people who don't have other
Absolutely.
people to play video games with. And there's a card game that's coming out in July of 2026. It's fully funded through Kickstarter, and the backers are going to be getting their games in July. I don't know when everybody
did
else
hear
will
about
get
that.
it, right? So that'll be pretty good. All right, so before I get into your experience,
Yes.
my experience is directly related to you because I have experience in the original tabletop game, right? That's the version we played.
We played 2020.
Oh, we played 2020. I thought we played 2013. All right, so I've played that game with my wonderful character, rocker girl Mad Vicky. She was awesome. And then I've seen the anime. I've never played any of the video games or read any of the novels or the comic books or anything like that. What about you, Max? What's your experience with it?
Well, I got into it through a friend's recommendation for the video game, but before I played the video game, they recommended I watch the prequel anime Edgerunners as an introduction to the world, as they said it is very concise, compact, and it gets you right into the action.
Mhm.
So after watching Edgerunners, I was hooked. I then went to the video game, and I was hooked. And then I
Is this a video game you can beat?
Yes.
Okay.
And
But
I
it's
beat
an
it.
open world RPG.
Yes. And you can beat it in many different ways, and I have done all of them multiple times.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then I got you guys into the RPG, and I was hooked, and so on and so forth until I've consumed almost everything that I could.
Okay, and you still play the RPG online?
I do. With my friends, I have gotten them into the RPG now.
And you use a Discord server for
Yes, through a Discord server, me and my friends have had a campaign of 2020, which we wrapped up, and now we've moved on into Red.
that. And who writes these?
Me.
I knew it. Okay. So, all right. So that's pretty fun. Now, I want to go into the transmedia properties because that's
Yes.
what this podcast is, and then I want to bring you back in for the totally unverified segment of the show where we talk about things that are possibly totally unverified. All right. So, of course, this podcast is about transmedia. So how did this story grow narratively? I want to look at the narrative of Cyberpunk and what happens, right? So I already touched on this idea that Cyberpunk Red, the tabletop game, was designed as a narrative bridge to fill a 32-year gap leading to the video game. I just love that. And then we have a recursive adaptation. So this is what's called the Edgerunners effect. Because the anime was so popular, it invades the tabletop game, resulting in Cyberpunk Edgerunners Mission Kit. This is a specialized tabletop game expansion. It came out in June of 2024. And it's a narrative and mechanical bridge within the franchise, specifically designed to bring the world of the Netflix anime into the tabletop environment. So have you played that yet?
The Edgerunners Mission Kit? No.
You should.
Though I really am interested in it.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's other media. So there's comic books and there's novels. You've read them.
I'm getting through the novel. I want to read the comic books so badly. They look
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, because I would think that would be a fun part.
And those really tie into the anime. They are very intrinsically connected to them.
Okay. Now, before we get into this totally unverified corner, and I'm waiting for producer Jordan to tell me how much time we have left, I want to go into a little bit of my nerdy detour besides the transmedia detour, because there's this idea called participatory culture, and it's from this media scholar Henry Jenkins, who also came up with transmedia. It's basically where fans don't just consume a story, they're going to jump in and shape it. And then you've got affinity spaces. This is a term from another scholar named James Paul G, which is just a fancy way of saying places online or in real life where people hang out because they're all obsessed with the same thing. So, yeah, Reddit threads, Discord servers, that one friend who writes a 12-page backstory for their cyberpunk character, that's all part of it. And when you look at cyberpunk, of course, if you play the RPG and you make a character like my wonderful Mad Vicky, I've already participated in participatory culture. In this case, at my dining room table. You can also go online into digital spaces like an archive of their own when you write fan fiction or if you do some sort of fan art. But I want to wrap up with Max talking about the totally unverified, mystery that's going on right now, right?
Well, I wouldn't say I just when you brought it up, I wouldn't say it's totally unverified anymore, but it definitely was the first thing I thought of when you said totally unverified in reference to Cyberpunk, which is of course the FF06B5 mystery.
Okay.
So the name comes from a code on a statue in the center of Corpo Plaza in Night City in the video game Cyberpunk 2077.
Okay.
Players saw this code and became obsessed with it, right? They looked into it. They thought it must have some meaning. When asked about it, one of the game director said it did.
Okay.
And this lit a bonfire.
Okay.
People started looking all over the internet. A subreddit, an affinity space, was created called FF06B5 Mystery, where people were searching all over to no avail. Until an update to The Witcher 3 came out.
Okay, video game?
Video game.
Witcher.
Yes.
Nothing to do with Cyberpunk.
Only connection is that it was also produced by CD Projekt Red, the producers of Cyberpunk 2077.
Okay.
Which, in that update to Witcher 3, added another piece of the puzzle, which also contained a strange symbol with the numbers FF06B5.
Okay, and any solution?
Not yet.
Okay.
In a later update to Cyberpunk 2.0, the biggest update to the game, many cryptic steps were added, which included different clues and ways to solve them, such as needing conversion tables, hex primes, complex steps in a virtual arcade game, waiting on an in-game mattress for 5 real-world minutes doing absolutely nothing.
Oh my gosh.
And through going through all of these different steps of solving these different clues and ciphers, fans eventually get a satisfying resolution and even a reward in the form of an in-game car.
Oh my gosh. So all of that for an in-game car?
Yeah, and it's
and they got people to look into Witcher 3. It's a marketing genius.
It is brilliant.
Which is going to tie into what I'm discussing next week. So I'm going to start wrapping up because that's it. That's Cyberpunk in a very, very tightly compacted nutshell.
I would say so.
Because there's a ton, right? And this is in a world that doesn't just tell stories, right? It actually leaks into ours with all of these ARGs and people playing at dining room tables, right? So you go from dice rolls in a church basement, maybe, to anime and Discord-hosted games. And it pulls us in so deep that even I've got a place there on a stage in Night City as my character called Mad Vicky, whom I love so much. Because in this world, we're not just watching it, right? We're not just watching the story, we're part of the story. In this case, you're writing the story, which is going to, so this line between fiction and reality is a lot thinner, right, than we think, which brings me to next week, because Cyberpunk isn't the only story that blurred that line. Next time, we're heading out of neon-lit Night City and into the woods. So no chrome, no corpos, just a shaky camera, a missing group of filmmakers, and a story that spread across the early internet pretty much so convincingly people weren't sure if it was real. So this is a film that didn't just hit the theaters. It spread like a conspiracy theory with a dial-up connection. I'm talking early internet people. So I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project from 1999. And yeah, I might have fallen for that little hoax. So I guess, Max, I want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And maybe at least you can join me next time, not next to me, but you can listen while I go into and explore how one of the most famous horror films ever made turned message boards websites, and word of mouth into one of the greatest cinematic hoaxes of all time. Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
The podcast show here on Bergen Bulldog Radio was engineered and edited by Nick Gonzalez. Our Bulldog mascot is Jameson. The next episodes will air beginning Friday, March 27, 2026. The executive producer of Bergen Bulldog Radio is Professor Robert Williams. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time on Bergen Bulldog Radio.